Hey, JD here. Welcome to the Mead House. You know, over the past several years, we've brought you over 125 episodes of mead making, education, information, and entertainment. More than 80 guests have stopped by the Mead House. Professional mead makers, medal-winning home mead makers, competition organizers, experts on yeast and honey specialists have all visited to share their knowledge. The Mead House has produced the home mead makers and brewers looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. You can help support the Mead House by joining the Mead House Keyholder Club on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and search for the Mead House. There's also a link in the show notes. For as little as $2 a month, you can become a keyholder. We've teamed up with some great companies to provide thank you gifts for your support. So get on over to Patreon, join the Mead House Keyholder Club, and get your own set of keys to the Mead House. Hey, you can listen to the Mead House podcast with your favorite player, and be sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes or your favorite listening venue. The Mead House. Mead making entertainment you just don't want to miss. If you made it to the Iron Bee this year, you would have noticed that we gave away several oak barrels from River Drive Cooperage Barrels Direct. Brand new, fresh, charred oak barrels, perfect for small batches of mead or distilled product. While their mini barrels are much smaller than their full-size barrels, they still possess the tasting characteristics of larger oak barrels. Sizes ranges from 1 liter all the way up to 5 gallons or 20 liters. My wife and I are both tequila connoisseurs, and I ordered one for her birthday last. We put a nice Blanco tequila, not once, but twice, in her 2-liter barrel, and we wound up with a couple of amazingly good reposados. The flavors of caramel, vanilla, dark fruit finishes with a nice slight oak barrel char flavor, all the aromas and characteristics of an oak barrel. River Drive Cooperage Barrels Direct. Shop for your barrels at barrelsdirect.com. I personally highly recommend them. barrelsdirect.com. Hey, welcome to the Mead House, and thanks for listening to episode number 133. You can catch the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and a whole lot of other places. They're all listed on the website. We've also got a very special announcement to make at the end of the show, so don't go anywhere. Stay right there. Hey, the Mead House. It's produced for home mead makers and brewers looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. Hey, you can talk to us. We're on Facebook and Twitter, both at the Mead House, or you can email us at info@themeadhouse.com. Hey, Jeff and Ryan are both in the house. My name is JD Webb. In this episode, he started his career out as an engineer with degrees in architectural and civil engineering on his resume. For 10 years, he worked in the land development and highway design industries. So how does a civil engineer go from blueprints of bridges to dumping 5-gallon buckets of honey into large vats of water for a living? Evan Henderson from Sap House Meadery joins us in this episode. In segment 2, German chocolate cake, oatmeal cookies, better yet, peanut butter. Oh, this is my favorite, peanut butter and chocolate chip cookies. Or how about a cherry pie? Peach pie, anybody? I'm not talking about cookie sheets and cake pans. I'm talking about fermenters and carboys. We'll talk dessert and pastry meads in segment 2. And of course, in segment 3, Facebook friends. This is where we try to answer questions with no formal expertise other than what the three of us have experienced in our own brew house. Hey, thanks to all the Mead House keyholders who help keep the Mead House podcast free. You too can become a Mead House keyholder and help support the show for as little as $2 a month. We've got some great thank you gifts to send to you. So get on over to patreon.com, search for the Mead House, or just click on the link in the show notes. What are we drinking tonight? Ryan, I think this one is one of yours. It's got a green, I don't know what color, kind of green, kind of a gold green. I don't know what the hell it is, but it says CSP. Is that one yours?
That one's actually mine.
Ah, Jeff. Just wow. Sweet. Almost got a nice tart finish. I got like dark fruits. Wow, this would make a nice this kind of goes along with my port collection, Jeff. This is pretty nice. What is this?
That's a Cabernet Sauvignon Piment.
Oh my God, dude! You hit this one right on the. Yeah, this is really good. The sweetness is definitely there. And I mean, here's the thing. I keep telling everybody that I don't drink sweet drinks. And by that, I mean, I don't like the Pepsis and the Cokes and 7-Ups and that kind of thing because they leave your mouth with this dry, candy, sugary, dry mouth thing. But the sweet meads that I've had here lately haven't done that. And this one, Jeff, is out of this world, man. Dude, I would put a bottle of this on the same shelf with the rest of my porch. This is really good.
Thank you. Yeah, it turned out very nicely for what it was. It's not by far the best thing I've ever made. There were definitely some people that are eager for me to repeat that recipe, though.
Oh yeah, definitely. I would absolutely. And I mean, I don't know whatever you need to do to make it any better, but absolutely, this needs to go on your A list. In my second fist, it seems to be a tradition here at the Mead House anymore. When I was in Kansas City, after we had left Minneapolis to Iron Bee, my wife and I made kind of a tour around damn near a third of the United States. We stopped off in Kansas City on the way back and had dinner at what's the name of the place, Jeff? Jack Stacks. Yeah. Barbecue place. Really solid food. Good barbecue. We were sitting at the bar, and the bartender poured me a couple ounces of bourbon that she had taken and infused sage, rosemary, and a couple of cloves, not allspice, damn it, clove. A couple of cloves of clove in. And it was really good. So I took a bottle of Bullet, and I put a sprig of rosemary in. I put the 16 leaves of nice savory sage, as she suggested. I didn't have any clove, but I did have allspice, and I put 2 little balls of allspice, 2 little seeds of allspice in. That made, well, I'm not real fond of the allspice. I think clove would have been much better. Almost similar in taste, but I tell you, if you're into infusing things, this turned out pretty damn good. I don't know that I would mix it in anything. This is, something you'd want to do if you're on the rocks drinker or whatever. But this is a nice little quiet sipper. Infused bourbon with sage, rosemary, and clove. So with that, Jeff, you're always good for something in your cup. What is it tonight?
So, I knew we were going to be talking to Evan from Sap House, and I figured I've got all these new bottles of Sap House I should try. This evening I have poured myself a couple of fingers of one of these days. It's a bourbon barrel aged wildflower mead from Sap House. A really nice, enjoyable, mellow drink. The nose has these notes of vanilla, a little char, a little floral from the honey. Flavor has that vanilla and then some really, really dominant oak notes to it. The honey kind of comes back at the end. It's there right at the very front, right at the very end. Bookends it really nicely. Just goes real mellow over the palate, smooth and easy going. I can't help but recall from Chrissy Mayan Zerpor's book about how a really oaky mead goes great with spicy curry, and so now I'm suddenly craving Indian food.
There you go.
And then in my other hand, I have a bottle that I think comes from Ryan. It's just a basic brown bottle with a black cap. And it is tart as all get out, but really tasty. Ryan, was this one of yours, or am I mistaken?
Tell me, black cap. I mean, tell me more about it. Is it
Sure.
What color is it?
Kind of a lightish strawish color.
All of Ryan's
Very
meads are
carbonated.
color-coded.
Are you drinking out of the bottle or out of a glass?
I poured it into a glass for the sake of looking
So
at the color.
it's very, very, very light in color.
Mm-hmm. Is this a Berliner Weiss or something along those lines?
No, it would have been mixed fermentation, but now I'm blanking on the honey right now to because I had one last night that was a mixed fermentation, but it was very, very dark. And now I'm trying to remember what the light version was. But no, tell me about what you're tasting.
So it's very tart. It's got a lot of almost a white winey character across the mid palate. There's maybe a little bit of funk in there. It's not quite as pronounced as just the acid and the that kind of tart bite to it. But I could see a little bit of funk on the back end.
Are you getting any apple?
Possibly, but not like what I would usually consider cider apple. Like I could maybe call this a green apple kind of a flavor.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really tough to put my finger on. Yeah, this drink's like a more pronounced Berliner Weiss to me. Like it's light in color, it's light in body. It's a very sour forward, but it's got some really fruity aromatics and notes going on too, and yeah, very refreshing finish. Feels light. So whatever it is, it turned out good. Would love to know more about it.
Yeah, it could be one of two things, and I just need to I don't have my book in front of me and to look at that, but I'm glad you like it. It might, the one of them that it might be would have been one that I introduced some fruit puree in, but that one was definitely a mixed fermentation, so you would get a little some of that Brett or funk or something in there. But no, I'm glad you like it, whatever it was. I'll dig into what that is and let you guys know next time around.
Sounds good.
Good stuff. Well, Ryan, please continue on. What did you put in your cup tonight?
Well, I've got 3 bottles in front of me tonight.
Oh boy!
And 3 bottles and a mixing cup.
Uh-oh.
I was going to decide I was going to do some blending tonight.
There you go.
And so in front of me tonight, I have one of the bottles of the semi-sweet traditional that you guys have each tried and has, both said that's a little sweet for me. And that's a good one to blend. It's a good one to make blends with. So then I've also got a white wine piment, or one of my white piments. And then I've got a very dry cider. It's not a sizer, it's just a cider. And it's very dry. This is actually commercial cider. And they say they kind of rate it on how sweet, tart, bitter, and the body. And because every batch they do, they say is different. And I dig that. So it's got like a 3 out of 10 sweetness, a 5 out of 10 tartness, a 3 out of 10 bitterness, and a 3 out of 10 body. And the ingredients in this thing are, it says fresh pressed apples, sorghum, hops, and yeast. So it's very tasty. It's delicious. It's absolutely delicious dry cider. And I'm doing different variations of mixing the together. So, a little bit of traditional, it's a little bit of piment, a little bit of traditional, a little bit of cider, a little bit of piment, it's a little bit of cider, and then a little bit of malt, all 3 together, and just doing some blend experimenting here tonight as we're working through everything.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Good stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's very good. All right, we've got a guest tonight, and we're long time coming for this guest. Evan Henderson is our guest tonight. He is I don't want to spoil the surprise. I'll get into that. He not much is known about him, I guess, from the beginning. He grew up in New Jersey, had plans of being an engineer, pursued that, was a architectural and civil engineer for, I think about 10 years here. I'm 10 years. And after long days of looking at the computer screen with absolutely no experience in mead making, beer brewing, cider making, wine making, distilling, probably not even kombucha making, he somehow convinced a very successful commercial mead maker to bring him on. And 3 years later, there have been some absolutely amazing results, with the Raspberry, the Mine of Enlightenment. These took home silver and gold medals at the Mazer Cup. And Evan is one of the 2 mead makers at Sap House alongside our good friend Ash. Welcome to the show, Evan, and what's in your cup tonight?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. So I decided to pop open a bottle of our Smoky Pete, but the Smoky Pete that I got is out from our initial experimental batch that we did. So it's slightly different from the Smoky Pete that we released to the club and resell. Well, we did sell, I should say. We're sold out of it right now. But it's just got a real nice smoky flavor. When we did it, we did a real small, 5-gallon batch, and so it wasn't and it didn't sit in the barrel for as long as the final batch did, but it's just still really nice. Got those smoky notes and some real nice peaty flavors. It's just real warming and just a real nice smooth drink.
Wow.
Great. That is one of my all-time favorite meads. That Smoky Pete. I loved it. My dad is a Scotch drinker, and that was the gateway mead that kind of piqued his interest in trying to explore a little more into the mead world. So I think that it's an absolutely amazing mead. I know JD, I think, got the last bottle that you guys had at the time.
Yeah, I did.
So, Evan, tell me about this. Let's just start from the beginning here, before we get too deep into mead. So you worked 10 years as an engineer. You say that you have no experience in brewing or mead making or anything like that. How did this go? How did you connect with Ash? How did you decide that you wanted to enter that world? Tell us a little bit about that story.
So I was an engineer for about 10 years, and like I said, I enjoyed the work, but just sitting at the computer screen all day just got to be too much for me. So after some contemplation, I decided to basically make a career change, and I just quit that, and I had nothing lined up. So I took a cross-country trip, a road trip across country, and visited some friends and family. And then while I was on the trip, Ash's partner and cousin Matt, who was a good friend of mine, had posted on Facebook while I was on the trip that they were looking for a production assistant to help out. And I just sent him an email. I was like, hey, I might be interested in this. I said, I don't have any experience, but I'm totally down for learning something. And I just thought it would be something different, something fun. And that's part of when I left engineering. One of the things that I really wanted to do was I wanted to physically do something, physically make something, have a product or something that I could be like, here, this is what I do. And with engineering, you you create a set of plans and something gets built, but it's not something that I physically had any input in or physically did. So I just really wanted to do something where I had something to show people in the end, and just kind of fell in my lap with meeting Ash, and just learning all I could from him.
Well, you say it's been 3 years, and you guys have done some absolutely amazing work. And whether you're being overly humble or not, saying that now you feel comfortable putting together some consistent, high quality batches, I think the results speak for themselves. I've had a handful of your meads, more than a handful of your meads. I've had quite a few of the Sap House meads, and I've never been disappointed in them. Actually have a bottle of Mind of Enlightenment aging on the wine rack, trying to get the right group of people together to open that one up. And it's you've done an amazing job. So tell us what was the learning curve like for you coming in to a new world?
So I mean, like I said, I had absolutely no experience. So when I came in, I just started working beside Ash right from the beginning. And one of the big things that Ash really talks about is like fundamentals and making sure you're doing things proper, doing things clean. Working in a clean, sanitized environment, and just being very cognizant of what you're doing and how it affects the fermentation process and what's going on. So he hammered home real quick that cleaning and sanitation were one of the big things, and he always said clean is not sanitized. Everything needs to be clean, and then you have to sanitize. And that was one of the things in the beginning that really stuck with me. Just having to make sure that anything that comes in contact or with the mead had to be cleaned, well rinsed and then sanitized. And so it all started with basic little steps like that. And then in the beginning, it's also, I'd say that making a good traditional mead is very important before you start adding all these other flavors. So in the very beginning, Ash was like, we're just going to work on the traditional mead, and we're just going to get this down. And once you get comfortable with that, then we'll start dealing with some of the other, other flavors and other recipes. But it all started with our traditional, and just, making batch after batch, and just, learning along the way, little tweaks here and there, and how you can change it. So just constantly learning.
How long was it before? How long was it before he turned you loose on your own to make your first batch of mead?
Probably it was a couple months until I did everything basically on my own without any supervision from him. When I first got started, it was a lot of bottling. That was one of the main things I did. We had mead already done and ready to go, and it was just I was bottling, labeling, packaging things up, and getting things ready to be shipped or to go on the shelf. Excuse me. It was just a lot of just simple things, and then probably I want to say I probably did maybe 3 or 4 batches with Ash, by my side as we're getting stuff from the very beginning. And then, after it's probably a few months, it was like, he was like, oh, can you start this batch tomorrow? Everything's ready to go. Everything, where everything is, and you can just go ahead and do it. So, that's,
what was your reaction at that point? How did you feel at that point?
Pretty nervous, I didn't want to screw anything up. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, especially with Ash, it was just I was very careful with what I was doing, and all the tanks cleaning and making sure everything was rinsed really well, and anything that comes in contact with the mead had to be properly taken care of before we did that. So
Well, it's no secret, Evan, that I think you probably know that I've talked to Ash about you quite extensively. That's why we had you on the show.
Yes.
I told him that, you know what, he couldn't have picked a finer guy to do what he's doing because, with an engineering background, and I've known a few engineers in my time, they're very attentive to small details. They're very exact in what they do. Do you find that sort of education in your engineering career has helped you along the way? And then what kind of things do you do based on that to ensure a good product in the end?
For sure. It's, from engineering, a lot of it is about like the process of you're faced with all these different problems, but then you just have to kind of step back and look at the problem and make a plan and then follow through with it. And when I was doing engineering, I did a lot of like stormwater management design and drainage, and you just have to like get an overall view and then zero in on like what you're looking for, and then like just to find the answers. And I find with mead making, it's kind of the same thing. Like I've dialed in my process. Like Ash showed me from the beginning how to do things, and then after a while, he left me to do it on my own. And there's a lot of things that I started doing that Ash didn't show me, but they just kind of helped me to basically just little things that just really like you're saying, like little details, little tweaks that just I felt worked better for me. And I'd show Ash sometimes certain things, and he'll be like, "Oh, that's really good." He's like, "I like that." He's like, and he may not do it the same way, but that's just my method. And yes, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask anything along that lines that might help a home mead maker out a little bit more. Anything that you've come across, or any details you want to share with us that might help one of our listeners make better mead at home?
Let's see.
Like the details.
Yeah, just a lot of it's trying to think of a good example for you guys. I know like when I first started making mead, I read all the books and went on the forums, and when they talked about like racking mead, a lot of them, they were like, everything was, you wanted to be very gentle. You wanted to rack from the top and then let it like kind of pour down the side of your vessel, and you didn't want a lot of turbulence. You didn't want a lot of activity. But when Ash showed me, started showing me it, he's like, no, you want a little bit of, you want to splash a little bit. You want to break out some of that CO2, because after it's done fermenting, he's like, that first racking, he's like, it's okay to be a little rough with it. And he just kind of showed me different methods of like where you're when we rack it over into another tank, we're not putting the hose all the way down to the bottom and just letting it like gently glide out. We're giving a little bit of velocity and just help to break out some of that CO2, which helps just, like I said, get that CO2 out of there.
Yeah. So Evan, over the course of learning all this, were there any like big aha moments that kind of stick out to you that you kind of had a sudden realization that something started to make sense, whether it's something that would be helpful to a home mead maker or just something in your professional process there?
Aha moment. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Well, I was just asking if there were any like big, aha moments or any like sudden realizations of like something suddenly made sense in a way that you hadn't considered it before. Just kind of over the course of learning all of the ins and outs of making a good batch of mead.
I'd say one of the things that I've kind of picked up with, especially with Ash, is like when we're working on new recipes. A lot of times, like I know you guys you always talk about the mead pairing book, and I found it really like both Matt and Ash both grew up. They worked in they were chefs and they worked in the kitchen. And they had this culinary background, and I had none of that. And it was just really neat to see how they can like taste something and be like, they'll like taste like a certain flavor, like with the smoky peat, like when we smoked the honey, and they're just like, oh, that's really good. And then as soon as there's certain flavor or something jumps out, how they can be like, oh, this would be really good with that, like Scotch jumped into like soon as Ash tasted the must of the smoked honey, he was just like this is going to do really good with a Scotch barrel, and like it just popped into his head. And I just find that really intriguing how their minds work in that way, because my mind does not always work that way. I'm very much meat and potatoes, very simple, and like they're always trying in different things and trying to expand on things, and it's kind of helped me to basically step outside my comfort zone and to try different things.
Well, meat and potatoes aren't all that bad. I mean, it takes a pretty good cook to, usher up a pretty decent steak.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's where you fall in. I mean, I'd come to your house for a barbecue any day, dude. This is, everything we do here on the show. I mean, you've listened to all of them. We're all about home mead making. Trying to come up with ideas and things for home mead makers, and and dealing with some of the professional mead makers. They all started from home. They had to start from somewhere. Mm-hmm. Just like you had to start someplace. I mean, you've got this background in engineering. Suddenly, you're a mead maker, and so our job here is just kind of ask questions about what are your thoughts on some of the methods and things that might help a home mead maker at home. What things have you discovered during the process there at Sap House that might help a mead maker at home? And we talked about the cloning. We did that long interview. Actually, I did the interview with Ash, and it's posted up on our Patreon site. And he talked about fundamentals. Getting back to, I hate the term getting back to the basics. But he talked about fundamentals, and starting at number one position was knowing the difference between cleanliness and sanitizing. So we've covered that. But what other things have you discovered along the way, Evan, that might help a home mead maker in their journey to put together, a quality mead?
I'd say one of the things, a lot of times, like I said in the beginning, Ash was very, he was always harping on that you need to make a good quality mead. And then once you get that down, you could start adding things to it. So a lot of time in the beginning, like I would, we'd make a batch and then I would pull a gallon here, pull a gallon there, and go through our racks of like different spices or different fruits and just do like a very small little experiment and just try something completely different. Yeah. Try mixing some different types of berries or pairing some spices with some different fruits, and that just really helped me just to try a whole bunch of different little things. And like we've done all sorts of different. We work with a local forager here in New Hampshire, and she goes out and she just forages all these odd things, a lot of things I just never really thought of. Like she's bought us like pine needles and white pine cones and spruce tips and Japanese knotweed and like all dandelions, like a whole bunch of different fun little things to try out. And it was just really neat to like try a whole bunch of these different ingredients that I just never really would have played with, and just starting with that basic traditional and then breaking off these little daughter batches and trying anything and everything was where you learn the most.
Kind of a fun process, actually. I know Ryan and Jeff are much more than me. I'm not so much the scientist. I think Jeff and Ryan are more along that lines. They like to experiment with different things. I've done a little bit. I'm kind of stuck in my old ways. I like what I like, and that's it. Damn it. But not to say that I won't try something in the future. I mean, I've got a list of to-do things that I would love to try. Let's talk about the barrel room for a minute here. I know Ash is he basically left you in charge. You're it, dude. You're the one in charge of the barrel room, from what he says. Talk about that for a minute. What kind of experience do you find that to be?
The barrels have been a ton of fun. I mean, I just find with the barrels, it's really hard to mess it up. Like once you add the mead to it and just allow it to age in there, it's just the flavors that you get and the tannins that you get are just phenomenal. I like when I used to work in the tasting room over in the pub at Sap House. I used to tell people with the barrel ones, I said a lot of times you get some of the best flavors from the spirits that were in the barrel before, but you don't get the burn. You just get a real nice smooth, like that smooth mead base, and then you get like if you're the bourbon, you're getting that caramelization, you're getting the brown sugar, you're getting the maple. You're getting all those really the best flavors, but there's like no burn because the alcohol is lower and there's no heat there, and it's just super smooth and just. I just think you get the best flavors from the barrels, and they've just been a ton of fun to play with.
How long did it take you to train your palate, to recognize those flavors? I've been a bourbon drinker for a long time, and it wasn't until I found this guy, Chris Trevino, and started watching his YouTube videos that I really learned how to taste bourbon. And it took him to mention different flavors, aromas like the caramels and the brown sugars and the dark fruits and the cherries and so on and so forth. Before I finally, old leather chairs even, before I finally started tasting and smelling those things in my bourbons. How was it for you? How long did it take you to develop your palate in that respect?
It probably took me about a year till I felt like comfortable, like talking to other people and like we use at Sap House every once in a while we'll sit down and we'll do tastings, and like Ash will give us blind tastings, and we'll sit down with Matt, myself, Ash, and Caitlin, our barroom manager, and we'll just kind of go through it. And those tasting sessions just really help me because you're listening to what other people are saying and you're kind of contributing what your different things you're tasting, and sometimes you're like, there's this flavor I don't really get it, and then like someone else will be talking, and then all of a sudden you're like, something they say will trigger something. You're like, oh yeah, I kind of get that like that licorice like flavor from like some when we had done like an anise mead, and like they're just it's just really helpful, I think, to sit and talk with other people about tasting all these different types of meads and all the different flavors that you're experiencing on the nose and in mouth as well.
That sounds like something that a home mead maker might experience as well. Put a small group of friends together and do some tasting. Do you think that would be a benefit to a home mead maker?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that, a lot of times, like, just myself, like hanging out with a few friends, and like, everyone will kind of show up, and like everyone will have like a 6-pack of something different. In this case, I'm talking beer, but like we'll sit down and we'll talk about the different flavors and styles that like each of us had brought, and it's just really neat to hear that input from other people, and it's just to listen and to learn from them.
Yeah. Well, I know you've had a lot of fun there, haven't you?
Yes, I'm having a blast. I love it. Is this the career change that you expected to have after leaving the engineering field? I didn't know what I expected, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity that Ash and Matt have given me, and I really enjoy going to work every day. It doesn't get old or tiring. I just really enjoy it. And
well, I know
one of the best decisions I made.
I know Ash thinks very highly of you, Evan. Ryan and Jeff, go ahead. Go ahead, Ryan.
Evan, it's been great to have you on. We have loved having a lot of the product that you guys have produced. JD, so he's got that bottle of Smoky Pete, and Jeff's part of the club, and I've been fortunate enough to try a lot. So we think you guys are doing a hell of a job there, and look forward to trying more of it. We didn't talk about tonight, but I also really like those jam sesh draft style meads you guys put out. Those are fantastic. On the other side of just the barrel type stuff that you're talking about. And tell us, I know you've been a Mead House listener. Is there anything that you heard in any of our episodes that piqued your interest or kind of put something in your mind that you thought about trying or experimenting with?
I really enjoy what you guys do and what you provide for people. And one of the things I really like a lot about is like being that on the commercial side and in New Hampshire here, we're not allowed to do much in the way with grains. So I love to hear your guys' conversations with all the different braggots and the different things that you do. It's something that I haven't had much been able to do much with, but it's just something I really enjoy the different takes that you guys have on all the different flavors that you're able to get from these grains. And at some point I'd love to where I live right now, I don't have the proper environment to really make mead at home, but I'd love to start working on a couple of those Ryan braggots or try a couple of those different things that you guys are always talking about, because I'm really intrigued with the braggot style, but it's one that unfortunately I haven't been able to do much with.
All right. Well, let us know if you ever. I'm sure after making mead all day professionally, it might be hard to come home and then make some more batches when you're off the clock. But if you ever do get around to that, please let us know. We'd love to hear what experimenting with grains is like for you.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
Evan, you're always welcome at the Mead House, my friend.
Oh, thank you very much. I like I said, I listen to you guys every week. I absolutely love it. It's just the different takes that you bring on, the knowledge that you and all the different people that you bring on has just been helped me to learn more and to just open me up to a lot of things, like I said, that I haven't really thought about or gotten myself into, and I just really enjoy what you guys are doing.
Very good. Evan, thanks for stopping by, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. Evan Henderson from Sap House Meadery, guys. It's about time we had him on the show. And, to go from an engineering background to to mead making, I mean, when you talk about jumping off a cliff, I mean, that's and I like how he did it. Jeff, I mean, take a motorcycle trip across the United States, see a post on a Facebook, help wanted, and go to work in a meadery. I mean, what the hell,
Yeah, I love the whole razor's edge. I need a change in scenery, a change in profession. I think I'll go take a trip. It appeals to a certain wanderlust that I don't get to explore as much with a small child at home. But man, it's my younger days. I did a lot of kicking around and enjoyed myself immensely for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was a lot of fun having Evan on. And Evan, I know you're listening. So again, thank you so much for stopping by. And I hope we haven't embarrassed you too much here on the show. Would love to have you back again here for another session here at the Mead House. But right now, segment 2, pastry dessert meads. I told you about the chocolate cakes and the chocolate chip cookies and so on and so forth. But first, Ryan, you've got an announcement about Valkyrie's Horn coming up.
Yeah, depending on when you're listening to this, it's either going to be today or has already happened. But on August 7th, that's a Wednesday, the registration opens for Valkyrie's Horn. So you can start entering your meads. Now, this is going to be one of the biggest mead-only competitions in the country. right out the gate, and it's going to be an amazing one. So you want to get in, make sure you get those entries in, get the payment in. You know, they're kind of doing that thing now. A lot of competitions are where, you know, you used to go in and just create your registration and you were pretty much good. And now, you know, the more of the trend is, you know, you get in and you got to pay. Otherwise, you know, they don't want people just sitting on entries that haven't been paid for. So get in, you know, make your entries, make your payments. So here's a cool thing too. A lot of competitions do entry caps either by an individual or by a category. So for example, they would say you can only enter 5 meads total, or you can only enter 2 melomels or 2 stone fruit meads or something. Valkyrie's Horn has no such restrictions. You can enter as many meads as you want. Now, I've known guys on both the beer side and the mead side who have carpet bombed competitions or made runs at competitions, you know, and entered, you know, 10, 12, 15, 20, you know, entries into a competition. This is the one you can do that at. You can make a run at Valkyrie's Horn. You can carpet bomb it and enter as many as you want. There is no cap per individual to how many meads you can enter, nor is there a cap per category. As long as the multiple entries in a category are different. These are notably different. So, for example, you know, you can't enter 2 semi-sweet cherry meads. You know, if you're going to enter 2 stone fruit meads, they got to be different. They can't be, you know, semi-sweet cherry meads. You know, you might have a semi-sweet cherry mead, and you might have a semi-sweet plum mead or something. But you can enter multiple ones into different, you know, into these categories. So aside from it, the last thing I was going to say about Valkyrie's Horn, again, make sure you get in there and enter, is a lot of competitions don't get enough braggot entries to create a braggot category. And, you know, we tried doing this a handful of months ago. There was a competition, and we tried having everybody take a run at it. I forget the name of the competition. And then the competition came out afterwards, after they got all these entries from our listeners, and said, oh, no, we're so sorry. We forgot to put in the rules that we can only accept entries from within our state. You know, we can't accept entries from without our state. So our kind of plan there to create a mead house, you know, run on braggots was foiled. Just, you know, with another competition. Well, this is going to be where we're going to make that run, guys and ladies. We're going to make a braggot run hard at Valkyrie's Horn. So make your braggots, find your braggots, do whatever you want, and get your braggots entered into Valkyrie's Horn. I would love if we had such a big turnout of braggots at Valkyrie's Horn that we, you know, had to even create different subcategories or either one massive, you know, category. I don't know how we'd break them out, but I'm sure we could do it. So let's make a run here at entering braggots into Valkyrie's Horn. Now, again, there's no limit. There is no category limit. If you've got 5 different styles of braggot that you've made, enter them all. Let's make this a really big category and really one that kind of is you know, again, is one of the big categories of this competition. Like I said, I'd love to say, hey, let's figure out how to break this out into a couple of different versions. But anyway, that's Valkyrie's Horn. Link in the show notes, valkyrieshorn.com. and I hope to all see you at the competition. It's going to be a great one.
Absolutely. The Mead House will be there. All three of us, I believe. So looking for a lot of fun again, and a chance to meet some of the same folks we saw at the Iron Bee. Hope to see you all there. And before we get to the cookies and pastries, let's do this first. Hey, Brew Demon. This is a revolutionary is the only way to describe the world's first 2-gallon conical fermenting system. Brew Demon's innovative fermenter allows you to brew beer or mead like the pros, but in smaller batches, and the results are scary good. Incredible tasting beers and meads made by a system that's easy to use and simple to clean. Brew Demon has engineered a conical system that makes for easy trub collection, meaning you can primary and secondary in the same vessel and even bottle or transfer with the built-in spigot. From the 1-gallon Baby Demon to the 6-gallon Big Demon, Brew Demon has everything you need to get started. Never brewed beer before? Order the complete kit, which includes the fermenter and ingredients, and get started as soon as it arrives. Brew Demon products can be seen at brewdemon.com. That's brewdemon.com. And the Mead House would like to thank Sam Dramas and all the folks at Brew Demon for supporting the 2019 Iron Bee. So, guys, how did I put it in the beginning? Something like chocolate cakes, chocolate chip cookies, oatmeal cookies, so on and so forth. No cake pans. We're talking fermenters here, Ryan.
Yeah. So before I get into that, I just wanted to you piqued something in my or sparked something in my mind there when you were talking about those Brew Demon beer kits. You know, one of the great ways to start making a braggot, if you're not somebody who comes at meat from the beer side, is take a beer kit and add honey, and you've got yourself a braggot. You know, and there's two different ways you can do that. You can just take out some of the malt and add honey, or you can keep the kit as is and just add more honey. But that is a great way to start making braggots, you know, like the first time. You know, it's just an easy way to do it with a pretty, you know, predictable, understandable result of the style of beer
Good idea.
That's going to be modeled after. Anyway, so this got started, you know, when I was growing up, Oreo cookies, ate a lot of Oreo cookies. Still love them. I mean, I remember when the double stuff came out, and that was a big thing for a while. Actually, at one of my grandmother's houses, you know, this was, you know, 30 years ago, they didn't have, you know, she didn't have Oreos. She had the Hydrox cookies.
I remember those.
That, you know, the Oreo equivalent. So anyway, Oreo cookies, I always remember them as, you know, the chocolate cookies with the cream, you know, vanilla cream in the middle. Well, now there are all of these flavors. You know, it started, I think, maybe the first time I saw one was the Halloween, and it might have just been orange-colored filling, but then I think they did like a pumpkin spice filling, and now you walk down the cookie aisle of the supermarket, and you'll see, you know, the half a dozen or a dozen different flavors of Oreo. Well, I was at the market one day and walking down that aisle, and I saw a bag, box, whatever those are, of pistachio Oreos. So pistachio flavored filling in the Oreo. And I love pistachios, just love them.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to get this. So I bought it, and it did not disappoint. It was absolutely amazing. These pistachio filled, you know, Oreos. I loved them. Well, just kind of out of happenstance, that same week, I was talking to our old friend Deborah Coletti from Amoretti, and one of Deborah's jobs is to help breweries and, you know, I should say not just breweries, but any commercial, you know, producer. So meaderies, you know, cideries, breweries, etc., design flavors and help them make the flavors they want. So I said, Deborah, I want to make a pistachio Oreo flavored mead. And she said, hold on a minute. I'm going to run to the store and go buy some because that sounds amazing. And then she came back and she was eating them and she's saying how great they were. And she helped me craft a recipe for a pistachio Oreo mead. And there's kind of two ways to go about it. And one way is to go the more of the traditional, I shouldn't say traditional, but more of, I'll just call it braggot and non-braggot. There's kind of the braggot method and the non-braggot method. If we go the braggot, in either case, the idea was, okay, we need to craft something that's got some really good mouthfeel. Because, you got that cookie, you got that cream. How are we going to create that really good mouthfeel? And so, whether you're using, if it's a braggot, maybe you're going to start using some flaked oats or some flaked wheat or flaked barley, I should say. And if it's not, or maybe you want to add some lactose or some maltodextrin or something to give it that creamy, fuller mouthfeel. And then from there, when we develop the flavor, you want to have a pretty neutral palate, so if you're going the braggot method, using really light grains, so that don't impart a ton of flavor. And on the mead side or the non-braggot side, maybe creating I almost want to call it a traditional, but a traditional with maybe some maltodextrin or lactose in it with a pretty neutral honey. So maybe clover or something like that that's not going to be too distinctive. And then we talked about products, Amoretti products, and she sent me a bottle of cookies and cream extract.
Oh, wow.
And a jar of the pistachio artisan compound. And trying to just dial those in at kind of the right proportions to come up with your cookies, your your pistachio Oreo mead. And this is something I'm interested in. It's something that, yes, it's going to have to be sweet because sweetness is the dance floor that the flavors pirouette on. You're going to have to go back and listen. That's me trying to remember Deborah's analogy. But there's a lot of different ways to do this. We've talked in the past about how to create maybe some sort of a graham cracker or a pie or something using some different grains or some different greens to pull that out. And I still think that's perfectly valid. But I was going at the extract and flavoring method to try to do this. And I'm really excited. I've got the recipe dialed in. Surprise, surprise, I am going the braggot method because I know the mouthfeel that I'm going to get from flaked oats, flaked barley, lactose in the boil, that kind of thing. I definitely will go the other way with some other projects of not doing a braggot method. But I think that this one, being a cookie base and the cookie is, has grain in it. And so I also see that parallel over there. But I also wanted to talk to you guys because I've talked about this a little bit more. There's kind of a micro trend on the beer scene where there were pastry stouts.
Yeah.
So, stouts, German chocolate cake stout or, bacon donut stout or things like that. And on the meat side, we just talked to, Sap House, and they make an oatmeal cookie mead. And I had I think it was blueberry pie mead, I think it was, from the guys down in Jacksonville, the meadery down in Jacksonville. So there are mead makers that are kind of making these, pastry style or dessert style meads. And I want to talk to you guys. I mean, we could talk about the gimmicky nature of them, but gimmicky or not, if people drink it and professionals are making it and people are buying it and it's being consumed, it's probably worth talking about in how to make a good one or different approaches to something like that. And so I'll throw this over to Jeff. What comes to mind? What's the first thing that comes to mind for you in thinking about a pastry or dessert mead?
Okay. Well, I've tried my fair share of these pastry and dessert stouts and things like that over the last several months, and I've had some good ones. I got the topic and started thinking about that earlier today, and decided I'm going to take a approach that is really pushing my comfort zone. I think I've talked about how previously I tried to do like a hazelnut extract that turned out really, really badly, and I keep saying, I'm going to do that again, and never quite, get up to it. And by the same token, I've kind of said, I've heard of doing a banana mead, but they apparently make a huge mess, and I'm a little gun shy about trying that.
Yeah.
I thought about desserts and what would make a good mead, what would make an enjoyable mead for me, and I recalled, we talked about my kind of gallivanting around as a younger guy. One of my favorite snacks/desserts when I was, living abroad was bananas with Nutella on them.
Oh yeah.
You just take you grab your pocket knife and get a banana, a little swath of Nutella on it, and simple, easy, but the flavors of the banana and the hazelnut chocolate spread together, just real delicious, real enjoyable. So I've been thinking about how I want to do a banana Nutella mead, and I think I'm going to hedge my bets here a little bit. The first thing I'm going to do is start with probably a 2 or 3 gallon batch of a plantain mead. I'm going to bake the plantains and get all the good sugar and caramelization, get some real banana flavor out of that. I may or may not include a caramelized honey in that to some or all the honey caramelized, just for more of that caramely kind of Maillard reaction sweetness. And then I'm probably going to end up splitting it. On the one side, I'm going to try it the really gung-ho fashion, where I'm going to age it on some cacao nibs and try and do another hazelnut extract, or age it on some nice roasted hazelnuts to really get that true to form hazelnut flavor. But I think I'm also going to hedge my bets, and the other half of the split, I see that Amoretti has a dark chocolate hazelnut artisan compound, or a dark chocolate hazelnut praline, I think is what they call it. So I may just get some of that and add that in a stabilized secondary to flavor, and kind of use it, kind of have a comparison, so that there's a safer, easier way, and there's a more challenging to my individual process with some stuff that I've been avoiding, like the hazelnuts, to challenge myself and push my boundaries a little bit, because that's I think an important part of growing as a mead maker, is just pushing yourself to try new things and do things you're a little gun shy on trying.
Absolutely. JD, what's your take on all this?
One of my favorite desserts is tiramisu. I just love a good Italian tiramisu. Now we're talking some really simple ingredients. We're talking coffee or espresso. Some people use a coffee liqueur, mascarpone custard, and then, of course, the little ladyfingers, that are drenched in the coffee liquid. Sometimes people will put a little buttercream, and then of course the powdered chocolate over the top. I could, I could sit down and eat a whole pan of that. I just love tiramisu. That's something that I would be interested in doing. Now, trying to cover all of those flavors. I got to go back to what you were talking about, Ryan, with your Oreo cookie. My dad used to be the general manager of the ice cream plant, Carnation Company in Glendale. And as a kid, I remember him saying that he always called chocolate ice cream rerun because they took the leftover, what was left in the vat from strawberry and vanilla, and they dumped it into the chocolate vat to make chocolate ice cream, because he said the chocolate covered the flavors of everything else. So I would be a little worrisome. Wouldn't the chocolate, and you didn't mention what you would do for the chocolate in the Oreo cookie pistachio deal, but I'm a little worried about that. Of course, I face the same thing here with this tiramisu. Now let's talk about the mascarpone. How do I get to the mascarpone? Well, what is mascarpone? It's a creamy, almost not a sour cream, but almost a creamy, custardy-like cheese. And you can sweeten it up, or you can do anything. You can put lemon zest in it. You can do whatever you want with mascarpone. Usually they sweeten it up a little bit. So now I'm looking at some kind of a creamy, sweet, creamy something or other. So I'm thinking lactose, something along that line, to give that kind of a mouthfeel. And then, of course, the coffee, espresso, that's kind of a no-brainer. There's several ways I could go there. I could go straight up coffee bean, like we've done in our coffee meads. I can do some espresso powder, which is kind of nice. There's one brand whose name escapes me that we like here at the Webb House. So I think I'm in the lady fingers. I mean, now I'm looking for some kind of a crusty, cakey, something like rolled oats or something to soak to give it that crust kind of a feel. I'd have to experiment here a little bit, I think, or explore this a little bit more. But tiramisu, I would love to do something with those kind of flavors. That would be my thing. Now, the other thing I like are the American standards: apple pie, cherry pie, peach pie. I could eat dozens of those in one sitting. Those seem rather easy to make. I mean, you're talking about basically, a couple of flavors. Well, I forgot the vanilla in the tiramisu, too. That's a big component. And that, of course, is a no-brainer, too. The pies, though, again, there's all kinds of recipes out there to, biscuit, different grains that you can use to get that pie crust type of flavor. And then, of course, the cherries and the flavorings, those can be done with extracts or compounds from Amoretti as well. So, here's the other thing, guys. This is a category of meads that is seldom, like braggots. I mean, you go out there on the internet and nobody talks about braggots. There's nobody out there talking about it. We're kind of the only ones talking about braggots. And yeah, we might push the envelope a little bit here on the Mead House with the braggots, but it's a category that is seldom talked about, both in forums and other shows. And so are dessert meads. I mean, everybody does melomels to pie mints to so on and so forth. I mean, go down the list of categories. And everybody's doing those. But how many people are doing dessert meads? How many people are doing a chocolate cake mead? How many people are doing an oatmeal cookie mead? How many people are doing what is it, Ryan? An Oreo pistachio?
Yeah, the pistachio Oreo white stout braggot.
Yeah, I like. This is almost like opening up a whole other part of mead making that has not been talked about, or is talked about very little. I haven't heard anybody talking about these kind of meads. Have you?
No. And the last thing I'll tell you is you had asked what I was doing about the chocolate portion. So the cookies and cream extract, if you've ever had cookies and cream, ice cream or something like that, it's almost that, they don't want to license the name Oreo. But what cookies and cream really means a lot of the time is pretty much
Oreo
ground
cookies.
Up generic Oreo.
Yeah.
So there's chocolate in it. That's how we're going to achieve that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good deal. Jeff, as a mead judge, how many times in your judging career have you run across meads that are of the type that we're talking about here, these dessert meads, if any at all?
I mean, hardly at all. You kind of hit the nail on the head. There is no shortage of dessert meads in the sense of they're just very sweet kind of after dinner cordials, or they're like little fruit bombs that have tons and tons of fruit flavor and lots of honey sac strength to them. But the idea of making a pastry-inspired or a dessert-inspired mead, there's not even a BJCP category for this. It squarely fits into that experimental category. And again, we're back to just what I fervently love about mead making is that the field is open. There are all kinds of weird things we can try with it that make sense on a level, just talking about it with friends. But nobody's really tried it. Nobody's really cut that cloth to go down that path and see what can be done with it. So these may be fantastic little dessert meads that we kind of end up creating our own BJCP category because they become so prevalent and so crazy. This may be a one-off thing that we try once and decide, no, that's all right. At best, I've heard of a couple pie meads. I think last summer we had was it Warren early on with key lime pie mead. I could be completely off on that. But I've heard of the pie meads, but that's about it. That's all the further this category has really gone. And I think there is, the experimental part of me, the weird part of me says, it's worth a try. Let's see what happens.
Well, all these other meads, Pyments, Melmels, they all had to start someplace. For all we know, it was just basically honey, water, and yeast to start with. It probably wasn't until later on that, drop a few blueberries in. That tasted pretty good. That came along. So, but, like I said, you go out there and there's 100, I can point you to 100 different recipes on how to do a blackberry mead. But how many of them out there, how about blackberry pie? How about German chocolate cake mead? I can't find any recipes out there, with those kind of flavors. But Ryan, I'm glad you brought it up, my friend. I think this is something that the Mead House needs to explore further, and I'm glad you're first up on the experimental portion of this. Let us know. Keep good notes. Let us know how it comes along. And it surely has given me thought. I'm taking notes here as you were talking. What are the desserts that not that in fact, we don't eat any desserts here. We only eat desserts when we go out to dinner, but I like the cheesecakes. I like the tiramisus. I like cherry pies, that kind of thing. But I took some notes, so I'm not opposed to giving this a shot. Moving on, guys. Segment 3, Facebook friends. But hey, let's do this first. Hey, Kraftmeister National Chemicals Incorporated. Hey, make better beer and meads at home with Kraftmeister Home Brew Supplies. Before it all starts, trust the experts. In a recent interview with Mead House, master mead maker Ash Fishbein of Sap House Meadery said, start with the fundamentals. Know the difference between cleaning and sanitizing. Professional brewers no brewing equipment that is not properly washed, rinsed, and sanitized produces inconsistent, often unsatisfactory results. That's why National Chemicals Incorporated, a leader in cleaning solutions for the food and beverage industry, developed some of the very best home brew sanitizing products available. In addition to our BTF iodophor, they offer Craftmeister Alkaline Brewery Wash, Oxygen Brewery Wash, Growler Cleaning Tablets, Carboy Cleaner, and a whole lot more. Hey, ask your local homebrew store for their products or shop online at craftmeister.com. Thanks, Craftmeister. Hey, you supported the 2019 Iron Bee too. Thank you so much. All right, Facebook friends, guys. I think we got time for a few here, at least a couple. Jeff, you're always good for. I like this whole Reddit thing. I hope you're keeping up with all that. And our presence is well known over there on Reddit. It's kind of a relatively unknown. Well, at least I don't go there very often. But have you got anything from the guys over on Reddit?
Sure. Let's see here. User Dreskin had that's Dresken has mellow homage to a lost wine. My partner loved this rosé that has been discontinued. I'm a home brewer now and thought I could try to make something to replace it, but this will be my first mellow and recipe creation. It's probably way too complicated and will turn out nothing like it, but no guts, no glory. They don't like high alcohol, and as is a sweet. They don't like high alcohol and are a sweet tooth. So I'm thinking of aiming for about 10% ABV and will back sweeten to about 10-12. I figure this will help the toffee and confectionery notes. My recipe ideas, besides the honey, water, and nutrients: primary for weaker flavors and texture, raisins for some grapeness, tea maybe for some tannins, 2 to 3 pink lady apples sliced and peeled, and use a peel in a tea steep. 500 milliliters pomegranate juice, store juice or freshly juiced. And then in secondary, prominent but mild berry flavors, 500 grams each of raspberries and strawberries, bought frozen, because the fresh are pretty expensive, but I could do fresh if it's better. Come up with a short list of potential yeast that I believe would be good for what I'm going for, but I don't have any experience with any of them. Any advice here would be greatly appreciated. And, they mention D47, 71B, RC212, and then the final part of this question, have you ever attempted a replication of a wine description? How did it turn out? Any ingredients here that you would increase or decrease? Is juicing real pomegranates better than store-bought juice? And then they include a photo of the description from the back of the bottle of rosé they're trying to replicate here. The 2016 sweet rosé, made from 100% Shiraz. Fermentation was stopped early, allowing the wine to retain 30 grams natural residual sugar. Lifted aromatics of toffee, apple, confectionery, and strawberry. Sweet palate showcasing ripe red fruits, raspberry, and pomegranate.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there, guys.
Yeah.
There is a lot there, and I'm just going to tackle 2 quick parts of it. And the first part is, he said, the fresh were expensive. I bought frozen. Would fresh be better than frozen? Well, if you're buying good quality frozen fruit, a lot of the times it's better than fresh. And here's the reason why. Those producers that make the frozen fruit are like flash freezing that fruit at the peak of its ripeness or its best flavor.
Right.
So they are capturing it at its best. So definitely, I mean, Kurt Stock, I was talking to him a couple weeks ago, and we're at the bar, and he's telling me that he makes his meads with Costco frozen fruit blends, some of that stuff, and get some of it, and not all of the time, not all of this stuff, but a lot of it, and it's really good stuff. I mean, he makes really good stuff. I mean, he's just using some of the time frozen fruit from like Costco. So, you don't have to worry about that. Now, when you do get fresh fruit, a lot of the time, what's the first thing that we do with it? we freeze it anyway.
Yeah.
And so, you're doing that. Now, the second thing you said was juice. You buy in juice. I've made meads from store-bought juices, and I've had them turn out really well. Here's what you want to be careful for. You want to look at the ingredients. A lot of the times it might say pomegranate or it might say blueberry, and the first ingredient is grape juice.
Yeah.
And then, maybe the fifth or eighth ingredient says pomegranate juice or
10% pomegranate.
Juice. Usually your giveaway is it says like juice cocktail on the front, and then it's there's some adulteration going on in there with the juices. But, if you look at the back, really what you want to see, if it says if you're looking to find pomegranate juice, you want to see pomegranate juice, and then maybe some sort of acid to help stabilize. But that's it. So you can do it. You just make sure you buy. It's usually not in the refrigerated section. It's usually in those small, expensive glass jars at one end of the juice aisle that are these disproportionately expensive expensive prices and small jars, because they are like pure black cherry juice, pure tart cherry juice, pure blueberry juice, pure pomegranate juice, pure cranberry juice. And you get those, again, those are usually made at like the peak of the fruit's flavor. So they're very good. And then you can definitely make some good meats with that. I mean, I've been pleased with the stuff I've made.
I don't know if you guys have ever eaten fresh pomegranate or like try to peel and take apart a pomegranate.
Yeah, once.
The effort involved in that makes me say, I want to buy juice. Yes. I want to buy the best quality juice I can find.
Yeah. Please don't try to juice a pomegranate. It's not like juicing an orange. You're going to have a mess, and if you're married, your wife is going to throw you out of the house. So,
yeah, my sister-in-law really likes pomegranates, and I mean, so do I. She's got this pomegranate kit, and it's basically you cut the pomegranate in half and you set it over this kind of like sieve-looking thing, and then you take a mallet and you bang on the back of it with this like mallet, and that's how you get the little peach tarts of the fruit, that are edible. I mean, pomegranates are delicious. I love pomegranates. Tip: next time you make guacamole, put pomegranates in with the guacamole. It is unbelievable. Oh, yeah. Or the cheap way of doing it, or I should say the easy way of doing it, you can buy these little cups, little like plastic cups that are just full of the pomegranate fruit that you can eat.
Yeah, and sprinkle those in.
Just buy, even just buy a good guacamole from the store and buy one of those cups and mix them together. Oh man, that'll bring your guacamole to the next level.
I put a little bit of Mexican oregano in my guacamole. That's anyway. This isn't a guacamole show, but we could easily turn it into one. I could give you some outstanding recipes on guacamole. But anyway, hey, my 2 cents, Jeff. I'm drinking. I swear to God, I'm drinking right now something that he might even consider making himself. He started out, what's his name? Breskin? Dude, I'm drinking something right now that if Jeff had used a little bit less grape juice and carved this thing up, this thing is sweet. Now that it warms up, Jeff, I mean, the honey aroma is just swimming around in the glass now. When I first had it, it was ice cold. That was kind of the wrong thing to do. I didn't know what it was at that point, but now that it warms up to desirable temperature for a port mead, this would make a terrific rosé. Go a little bit lighter on the grape juice. You could even back it up with your pomegranate juice. You could throw in some frozen berries in secondary. Even crush up some blackberries and just let them sit on the top there for a couple of weeks. and carb this thing up and make yourself a rosé. Whether you're talking a sparkling rosé, or I don't think I've had anything else, but dude, you got the recipe right here.
Yeah.
Breskin. Breskin, listen to the front of the show. Listen to.
And to be honest with you,
go ahead.
The recipe that you're drinking right now could not have been simpler. I took a 1 gallon Cabernet Sauvignon kit that I got from my homebrew store. I put it together with plenty of headspace. Yeah. I took a gravity reading, and I put enough honey in it to basically double that gravity reading. And then I pitched some yeast, and I babied the heck out of it. And you're drinking the end result.
I'm telling you.
And I think the yeast was as simple as 71B. Yeah.
Yeah, and 71B would be my choice because it's an easy yeast to work with. It's going to drop anywhere from 110 to 112 points or so. You can almost bank on that. Keep up with a good yeast nutrient strategy. 71B, to me is one of the easiest yeasts to work with. It's kind of a workhorse. It's not going to fail you if you pay attention to it and do everything right. But this recipe that Jeff talked to, listen to the front of the show, Breskin. Maybe Jeff will put a post in there and say, hey, listen to episode 1. What are we on? 133. The top of the show. Jeff will give you, and he just did. He just told you what was in it. This would make an outstanding rosé. Keep the sweetness level where it's at. And like I said, back it up with that pomegranate juice. Be careful with there's a brand out there called Palm. It's 100% pure, unadulterated pomegranate juice. That's what I use in margaritas. That's what you should use in your mead. And be careful using it. Pomegranate juice is a little dry sometimes. At least that's how I found it. So be careful how much of that you use. But hey, this is the recipe right here, Jeff. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I would probably
go ahead.
From his recipe, yeah, I would say the only real grapey contribution that he's including there is some raisins. I would definitely throw in some kind of a wine concentrate. Whether you're doing like a wine kit from your homebrew store or some Alexander's grape concentrate or something like that. I don't think I would go, Concord red grape juice concentrate or anything like that.
No.
Although that could definitely work. It would give it some sweetness, but somehow it feels wrong. For what you're trying to accomplish for a day.
Yeah, and the other thing too is be careful with the tea because you're going to get some tannin out of that grape juice. If you use a regular wine grape juice, you're going to get some tannin out of that to begin with. Not a great deal, but then you're going to add pomegranate juice, on top of that. That'll give you a little bit more. So be very careful with the tea. As far as plus rosés, I don't find rosés have that much tannin. More the darker reds, the Merlots, Cabernets, Shiraz, things like Pinot Noirs and rosés that I've had haven't had a lot of tannins in them. So be careful with the tea. But good stuff, guys. Hey, that's going to do it for episode 133. Hey, thanks for listening. And special thanks to Evan Henderson from Sap House Meadery for hanging out with us today. And we do have a special announcement to make, Ryan, like I said at the top of the show. Hey, the Mead House. Hey, we're going to be launching our first YouTube channel. We're in the process of uploading all 133 episodes to the channel. For now, use the search term Mead House in the YouTube search box, and you'll recognize it when you see it. We'll put the links on the website. But hey, the Mead House, we got our own YouTube channel now. And like I said, we're in the process of uploading all of our episodes. The current episodes are all up there from 125 on. We're in the process of doing some editing on the earlier episodes, but they'll certainly be uploaded as we go along here. So check us out on YouTube. Just search for the Mead House, and then you'll see it when you get to it. You can also get the link off the website. Yes, I said that. In the meantime, hey, happy mead making. That's it for this episode. Hey, Ryan, flip the lights off. Jeff, slam the door shut. We'll be back next week with episode 134 of the Mead House.